Ex-wife's wedding destroyed by her boring. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. She left me a simple note on a post-it and a plate of reheated lasagna. Nothing dramatic, no tears, just her handwriting. Someday you'll find someone who matches your rhythm. Next to it, a casserole dish still covered with last night's aluminum foil. That was 4 years ago. Now, I'm holding an ornate wedding invitation with gold embossed lettering that reads, "Carter and Parker request the honor of your presence." My name on the RSVP line, like she's inviting me to a book club instead of the grand reveal of her new life. Instead of a wedding ceremony, she wants me to see her in a white dress again, sitting silent in the back pew, marveling at what she's upgraded to. What she doesn't realize is, this isn't her stage anymore. I filled out the reply card and checked gladly attending, with no +1, no distractions. Always thought silence meant weakness, that walking away without slamming the door made me dull. But silence, I've learned, carries gravity. It makes people lean in, eager to fill it. She'll learn that eventually. I booked a flight under my middle name, rented a car in a town 2 hours away, even bought a new pair of shoes, though I swear I won't break them in before the big day. She set the stage, I'll let her take the spotlight. And maybe, before we go any further, I've got a small favor. If you've made it this far, 98% of people watching this channel haven't hit that subscribe button yet. We're building something raw, real, and sharply honest here. Your one click can help us finally hit that first 10 subscribers. It's not just about numbers. It's what keeps our team sharpening these stories and digging deeper. Thanks for that. Back to funny thing, she always hated how I folded my shirts, said I was obsessed with neatness. That day she rushed out, didn't notice the storage unit key I had tucked inside her old jewelry box, or the ledger I'd moved to the garage, or the backup drives labeled 2012 taxes, which weren't taxes at all. That key was the first step. The second was a name. Malden, young and ambitious, founder of some startup that sold empathy tracking software to HR. Oh, and charming, the kind of charm that makes your mom flirt and your best friend raise an eyebrow. They got engaged in less than 18 months. She posted a caption, "Took a leap, fell into something real." I printed it, framed it, not out of heartbreak, but from precision. I don't hold grudges, I catalog them. What doesn't know, and probably still doesn't, is that her father and I once sat across each other in a federal courtroom. Same suits, typical silence. I remember how he looked down at the verdict, his jaw twitching, recognizing that moment he was finally caught. Now he's walking his son down the aisle. I arrived 2 days early, small-town historic church, brick and ivy. I drive past the church once, then again. No one notices. Probably sent that invitation hopping I'd ignore it or that I'd come crawling back, full of regret. Either way, she misjudged me. I check into a second-floor motel with no view, pull the curtains tight, iron my shirt, and lay out a sealed envelope I hid in my jacket's lining. It's a copy of the very document her future father-in-law never thought would surface again. It's signed, notarized, forgotten by most except me. I sleep like a soldier on recon, preparing for the morning. I dress slowly, no tie, crisp cuffs, a pocket square matching her wedding invitation's shade. Let's call it performative closure beige, just like her wedding. I park 3 blocks away, walk the rest, come in as a Sunday storm. They say revenge is best served cold, but I disagree. Revenge, I've learned, is best served silent, like a man you thought was history, sitting quietly in your audience, watching your delusion unfold, fully aware that the final act belongs to him. Didn't cry when she left. Instead, she smiled. A smug, satisfied little smile she rolled out after winning arguments she never truly understood. She stood in the doorway, wearing a silk blouse I'd never seen before, clutching a Louis suitcase with a gift tag still attached. Hair curled, lips done, yet not for me. "Thomas," she said like she was diagnosing a mild allergy, "I want passion, not spreadsheets." I remember staring at her 4-inch heels. She always said they hurt her arches, but I guess excitement made her bulletproof. She didn't slam the door, she just clicked it shut as if heading out for a spa weekend. No affairs, no yelling, just her exit. She moved in with before the coffee cooled, a mid-30s startup guy, all teeth and charisma. I saw a video of him at some tech conference, gesturing like a magician, selling some intangible disruption. He joked about old-school management and got a standing ovation. Probably watched from the audience or maybe was in his hotel room already, hard to tell. I didn't fight, I didn't call, I didn't post some cryptic quote about growth or healing online. I just deleted her contact, set my calendar on fire and started a quiet to-do list, something no one else would notice. Because never understood, I don't make scenes. I build systems. She thought she erased me, but she only stored me away in archives. Now she struts down a marble aisle in an expensive dress, arm in arm with the man who spent 3 months trying to silence the federal government. A man whose name still lingers in sealed court transcripts. A man who, in 2001, nearly lost everything because of a who refused to be bought. That was me. Of course, doesn't know that. Men like him don't read history, they rewrite it, with their dad's money with PR teams. But his father, Charles Malden, remembers. We shared more than a courtroom. We shared a moment when he realized I wasn't just a cog, I was the machine. Now he watches his son say, I do, in front of the man who almost toppled his empire. Fate's ironic like that. The wedding venue is laughably grand, a restored cathedral in a town too small for marble lions at the gates. Loves theatrics, she always did. The guest list probably includes her Pilates friends who said she was glowing during the separation, maybe some crypto buddies and her sister, who once drunkenly told me I was the best thing that ever happened to. But honestly, you're boring, she said once. She wasn't wrong. I was dull until I pulled the pin. I arrived early, efficiency is controlled patience, and sat in the second-to-last pew, 3 seats from the aisle. From there, the stained glass cast a warm, amber glow like something biblical. Probably thought it made her look radiant. Guests poured in laughter, champagne, whispers, envy, ego, all that curated chaos she always wanted. Then the doors swung open, and she strode as if she were the star of a one-woman show, head high, smile calculated. Her gown, and sculpted to look effortless, was classic, elegant rebellion in white. She didn't walk toward, she walked toward victory, her little "I told you so" in human form. Her confidence was slow and measured, the veil pulled by a flower girl dressed in glittered obedience. She didn't recognize me. Of course she didn't. That version of me no longer exists. But the man in the front row's father, Charles Malden, did. He sat stiff, holding the wedding program as if it were a secret. His eyes found mine and froze. I saw it, the flicker of recognition, the subtle twitch of his jaw. He looked like someone who had just seen a ghost he'd thought was buried far beneath concrete. He leaned into his ear, whispering something urgent, calm, surgical. His grin faltered, his brow furrowing. He blinked, like trying to recall a forgotten dream. Then our eyes met and I saw it, the uncertainty, the slow realization that the script is missing. Turned back to his father, whispered more, but Charles shook his head sharply. He pointed at me with 2 fingers, discreet, commanding, halfway up the aisle, stopped. What is it? She called out, half laughing, trying to keep it light. What's going on? But no one answered. The organist hesitated and then stopped playing entirely. Guests shifted, looking back at me, the unknown man in the cheap pew, the shadow who but no one really invited. Voice sharpened. She said, but he didn't reply. The priest looked unsure, smiling or blessing, unsure of what's happening. Then suddenly handed his to a groomsman, stepped down from the altar and started down the aisle toward me. Shoes echoing on polished wood, eyes locked. The tension surged through the room, confusion, ego, silence, like the walls themselves were bruising on the weight of it. The bridesmaids stiffened, frozen like mannequins. Stood, frozen, her mouth slightly open. Her heels shifted reflexively as if deciding whether to charge or run. Stopped about 3 feet from me. You, he said, more of a statement than a question. I met his gaze. Not quite a question yet, I replied calmly. He hesitated, then asked, do I know you? I tilted my head. Not yet, but we've been circling the same fire. His face tensed as if those words hit somewhere deep. "Why are you here? What are you doing?" he demanded. I reached inside my jacket, pulled out the envelope sealed in wax the old-fashioned way. "This," I said, offering it, "is for your father's eyes only. Read it privately, then decide if you want to go on with this today." Didn't move. But Charles did. He snatched the envelope before could even reach for it. No words, just a ghost of a look, like he'd seen something dead long buried come to life again. He opened it right there in front of everyone. No discretion. Just tore open the seal. His face drained of color, his pupils shrank. A vein pulsed on his forehead as if counting down. When he finished, he handed the papers to with slow reverence, like passing a detonator. Read silently, then looked up at, still frozen, the perfect statue of every wedding fantasy she'd ever imagined. He didn't raise his voice, didn't cry. Just said sharply, "You need to sit down." And silence fell, was shaking, not dramatically, just that subtle twitch men get when they realize they're standing on a minefield. He stared at me as if trying to remember a stranger from a nightmare. "Do I know you?" he asked. His voice was steady, but his body betrayed him, clenched fists, shoulders pulled back as if trying to stay upright on a boat about to capsize. I moved slowly. "No," I said, "but your father does." I held out the envelope again, the same wax seal, the same gravity. "You'll want to open this alone, then decide whether today's still your day." Glanced at his dad, already storming forward. Charles snatched the envelope swiftly, like it might blow up if left with him. No words, just that familiar public mask, calm veneer hiding panic. He grabbed his son's arm and pulled him toward a small side room, a quick, quiet judgment. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Someone coughed. A groomsman checked his phone, then put it away. The priest looked unsure, like he'd just been handed a live grenade, tried to move forward. "He's not going in there alone." "Not without me." But her maid of honor, a fierce redhead, blocked her. Said no, she told quietly, froze, grip trembling. "Are you serious?" she asked, voice catching. "Yes," the maid said, stood in the aisle trembling, her heel slipping. She looked like a woman deciding whether to charge or bolt. Just stood there 3 feet from me, silent, serious. "You," he said, voice not quite a question. "Not quite yet," I answered calmly. He looked back at his father, who was already marching ahead. Charles snatched the envelope, no words. They both moved into that side room, leaving the church in a strange, tense hush. The crowd looked on, uneasy. Someone cleared their throat. Another coughed. The organist hesitated, then stopped. I didn't say a word. I watched as tried to push past, but she knew she couldn't. Heels, pride, all of it dragging behind her like a train. When I stepped outside, I paused only once to glance back at the altar. The artificial fantasy she'd built her life around crumbling in silence. Outside, cool air greeted me like an accomplice. Then footsteps followed behind me. I didn't turn. I already. Charles Malden was just a few feet back, holding the envelope like a verdict. "You never forgot," he finally said, his voice tired, not mocking, not angry, just exhausted. I looked at him. "No," I said, "but I forgave. That's why I came." His eyes were wet, but he was unbroken. I shook my head, closing the chapter on this story. Not revenge, not rage. I didn't come for gloating. I simply came to turn the last page of a story that started the moment told me I was too safe. She missed a quiet strength, a kindness mistaken for dullness. She thought the world belonged to those who shouted loudest, moved fastest, shined. But power is knowing when to speak and when to vanish. That's what I did. I left, didn't look back, and didn't wait for applause. The church doors groaned shut behind me, sealing everything inside. By Monday morning's wedding was a cautionary tale, wrapped in designer lace, becoming a story of the one that got away. The first articles appeared in gossip blogs, blurry photos, anonymous quotes about the runaway bride of Whispering Pines. Within 2 days it exploded. An investor pulled out, a vendor made a viral tick rant, and curated Instagram suddenly went dark. She spent the last year building a brand, lifestyle coach for women who refused to settle, always ending her captions with upgraded. Now people were leaving comments, "You got downgraded, sweetheart." Vanished from the spotlight. Word quietly spread that he'd fired his father as an advisor, and the firm was under review. Even though she'd quit her job months earlier, called herself retired, though she was 41 and still in debt. She moved out of her apartment right before the wedding, draining their joint account on glasses and imported stone tubs. She told her landlord she didn't need a backup plan. She was couch hopping, borrowing money, waiting for the venue refunds that never came, because the venue sued for breach of contract, non-payment, and damages. Despite her efforts, wasn't listed in the lawsuit. Was. Neither nor Charles answered her calls anymore. She spun the story it was mutual, she said. Better as friends, the timing just wasn't right. But the city's social circles don't forget. They only move forward by biting off bits of the past. And by Friday, she cracked. One message, no emojis, no punctuation. Just, what did I ever do to deserve this? I stared at it. The audacity, her pretending she didn't know that her abandoning me for a flashier man, flaunting it like a trophy, wasn't enough. That leaving me in the quiet with our routine, our spreadsheets, our Sundays, wasn't enough. That inviting me to be part of her wedding, more of an audience, was part of her game. Of course she knew. I didn't reply. I didn't have to. Silence had started this, and silence would finish it. It was raining when I saw her last. Soft drizzle, no thunder, no soundtrack. Just the gentle, muted sound of rain softening the city and making everyone more careful. I was at the library. Tuesdays are quiet there, old hardwood, overpriced espresso, pages turning. I liked it because nobody asked questions. You could be alone with your thoughts. Then she appeared. Thomas, she whispered, small, like the I didn't recognize anymore. Not the woman who once whispered from a balcony that I wasn't built for greatness. This one stood in flat shoes, in a raincoat she probably never planned to be seen in. She sat down before I invited her. I didn't flinch. I just closed my book and looked up. Her eyes were glassy, not from the rain. I really did love you once, she said, fingers clutching her purse like she needed something to hold onto. I sipped my cold coffee. You loved the version of me you didn't understand, I said. What does that mean? She blinked, confused. It means you fell in love with a mirror. When I didn't reflect what you wanted, you smashed it into pieces. She didn't answer. She looked tired, exhausted in a way no or workout could fix. The kind of tired that comes from betting everything on a facade and losing. I wasn't trying to hurt you back then, she said softly. But you did, I replied. She looked down, tried to smile, twisted, painful. I thought if I built the perfect life, it'd prove something to you, to everyone. And it did, I said, standing up. I left my half-finished coffee behind. She didn't stop me or beg, I just walked out. When I looked back through the window, I saw her watching me go, small, disappointed, like she'd imagined this ending differently. She never saw me again. I didn't need to yell or rage. She ended my story once, smirking with a suitcase. I ended hers with silence.